Hello, I'm Sara.
And I'm Hannah.
And we are two of the four Challah Back Girls.
Yes, we are from Challah Back Girls, and Challah Back Girls fundraises for, supports, and uplifts organizations leading racial equity work by connecting people to the Jewish ritual of challah, a traditionally braided bread. Through sharing this Jewish tradition, we provide an educational opportunity for healing and transforming justice.
All right, I'm just gonna say how that was a flow. That was a good flow. You got in there. I go the back and forth. Bravo, ladies! Yes,
thank you.
That was
and it
so
wasn't
cool.
Planned.
Nailed it. Yes.
Crushed it.
Oh my God, this is gonna be fun. So, all right. So, hello, Sara and Hannah. Thank you very much for being here. I really, really appreciate it. I saw you guys in the news, and I can't remember if it was national or local news, but I saw you in the news. Oh, wait, it was on, I think it was on Oda and Jenna, maybe? I don't know. But I saw you on the news, and it was like, I just loved everything about this and what you're doing, because I have a love, I'm not gonna lie, I have a love of your food. So you're gonna have to help me with this. So I was in Israel in 2019, I was in Israel. And I was named, which my mother is floored because she's like, I don't know how you got this because you're not that important. And that's from my mom. But I was like named one of the most influential women. And Israel invited me to come. And I was like, oh my God. And I was with, I know.
That's so awesome.
It was so crazy. So now I'm in Israel and I'm like, we're in Jerusalem. I'm like, oh my God, Jesus laid here. Oh my God, look at this. I mean, like literally, it was like mind blowing because I've had the Bible. Have I ever read the entire Bible? No, but it was just like everything about, it's one of the books, it's on my to-do list. But when you're in Jerusalem and you are now like in part of all these different things, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. But one of the most amazing parts was we were invited to so many homes, and in the homes you have the meals and there's a dessert. Now, I have a lot of Jewish friends, and of course we call it the I'm trying to think of the dessert that I'm thinking of is, name your dessert that everyone knows here. It's
babka.
No, not babka. The one that everyone eats here for the most part, and even like
is it like kalva?
Yes. Okay. So
Hannah's obsessed.
I'm obsessed.
Yeah. So we're like, I have it here. I'm like, okay, go to Israel. Holy crap. I was taking pieces to my hotel room and they're like, this needs to be refrigerated. I go, it won't even need time. Don't you? It's going to be gone before we even get back to the hotel. Holy moly. So I was so happy because I was introduced to so many different foods that we don't get here. Traditional Israeli foods that were just mind-blowing in every single way, because everyone just assumes, okay, bland, it's like only during the high holidays and things like that. I'm like, no, there's so many spices and aromas and tastes and things that we're just not getting here. And one of my beautiful families that I like, because we got to go and have a Shabbat dinner, and I was like, what's that? I mean, I was in heaven. So when you guys came out and you're showing all the different breads, and in my mind, I'm like, oh, I thought it was just one bread. And then you're showing the world so much more. So that is my start to my love of you guys already, right from the start. But before we talk about the bread, where are you guys? Where are you located? And tell me about your family, and then talk about when the pandemic started for you.
Yes.
Amazing.
So we are located, first of all, we absolutely love that story because something that's really beautiful about Israel, not only that you went and visited it, but is the multiplicity of faiths and religions and diversity. And I absolutely love your story. I am obsessed with halva. So, and I'm sure that's what it was, because it can be refrigerated and you can take it home in slices. And so I have a good feeling about that.
And also it's a really good, just hand on the go.
Yeah. So we are located not in Israel. We are in Teaneck, New Jersey. And at this moment in our lives, I am in graduate school studying for my master's in social work. And prior to the pandemic, I was finishing up my undergraduate studies at Binghamton University in Binghamton, New York. And then I came home for an uncertain amount of time.
Yeah.
And where are you?
Oh my gosh. I also am in Teaneck, New Jersey at this present time. And before the pandemic, I was living and working full-time in the city at a nonprofit. I still am at the nonprofit, but I have since moved officially back home so that I can bake challah every day with my sisters and make this happen. And I'm still also working full-time. And I'm the first and Hannah's the third. And Marni's the second, and Eliana.
Okay, so since the other two sisters aren't here, introduce them and where are they?
So Marni is the second, and she lives and works full time in Washington D.C. She was also full time she was on a program before the pandemic. I'm trying to think of my timeline here. And it ended in the pandemic, and then she stayed in DC and is now working still there. Wow.
Yeah. And she works doing street outreach for youth experiencing and at risk of homelessness.
Mm-hmm.
And Eliana, who's our 16-year-old sister, lives at home. Because she's only 16.
She'll be 17 next week. Have to give her a shout out.
And she is a junior in high school. So she's in a pretty crazy time in her life. But yeah, that's where all four of us are.
And Marni will come home as often as she can.
COVID permitting.
COVID permitting, right. It's been, you have to do the COVID math, especially
Yep.
Yeah, towards the beginning. But yeah, that's where we all.
So March 2020, the world is like crazy. I mean, not New England where I am, not New York, New Jersey, not the country, the world is absolutely crazy. No one knows what's going on. 4 powerhouses are now coming home. I mean, and I'm going to say this and we're going to talk about my experiences in Israel a lot too, because women, so being Catholic, the Bible is men, until I learned about the Jewish religion. I'm like, women. Here
we are.
And so there you are. And then you're not weaklings. It's not in your DNA to be a weakling. I mean, and it's not in your DNA to like be wallflowers and say nothing. You speak your mind. It's like you guys are powerhouses, badasses in the military in Israel for a reason. It's superb. I don't know if you guys can realize the love fest before even the bread. There's a love fest happening here.
No, we love it. We're in it.
But it's like the 4 of you guys are now coming home. Like you are like, we are so excited. We've left the nest. We are doing our thing. We clearly are very, very in love with our family and our religion, but we are now, the wings are spread. And then the pandemic happens and all 4 of you are back in the house. And how did that work out for you guys at the beginning? And how has it evolved?
It's really surreal. And especially at this 1-year mark, I've been reflecting a lot about what that has felt like for me. I just moved into the city and started my life outside of my childhood home, and coming back, for sure, it was a lot. And on top of that was a pandemic, and trying to navigate those feelings and what that looked like with independence and what that meant for the family. And now there are 6 of us and a dog living back at home in the same room 24/7, trying to figure out who's working where. And Hannah, and she'll talk a little bit more, but we grew up baking challah, and she'll get into that, but she came home and provided us with challah every week for the Sabbath, which I'm grateful for. The quarantine 15 is not so grateful for, but we were really lucky to just have that vibe in the house. And we started to bake challah for frontline healthcare heroes at the peak of the pandemic. And
wait, don't talk. We don't want to talk about the bread yet. I want to talk about how it was for you guys. I mean, literally, like, you're coming back. Yep.
I'll stop there.
Yeah.
Take it away.
And I can definitely echo that, because we were independent, as you say, powerhouses in the world, going out and just, we were learning what independence looked like. We were learning how to, you know, kind of push boundaries and build barriers for ourselves and learn about the people who we were living with in New York City or living around in our neighborhood and communities or on my campus. And so it was very weird to all now be back coming into a space all together. And we, as Sara had said, kind of figuring out our spaces in the home, we
literally and figuratively,
we would put up signs of like Hannah's WeWork space. And like, and it was the dining room table. It was by no means a WeWork space because I was in the middle of the house. People were passing, people were going to and from rooms, to the bathroom, to the deck, to go for a walk. So it was really something that was,
come on over.
When you think about the word adaptable and being flexible, this was that.
And it was a total test also. I mean, it tested patience and communication. And it was the first time that I lived back with all my sisters and my parents in 10 years, at least, you know, at least.
Wait, there was a 10-year gap. There was a 10-year gap from the time that you left to the time you came back?
Yeah, I mean, I came back a lot, but like to breathe and say hi. But when I left, I'm 27, and so when I left,
when you went to college, which was such a weird feeling. And even I think Marni, I can speak on behalf of Marni and myself, we actually took a gap year between high school and college, and we studied in Israel for the year. Okay. And so that was also, for me, that was when I was 18. Yeah. And that was my first taste of freedom, of like time outside my house, where my parents weren't holding my hand, walking me through daily activities or bringing me to appointments or coming with me when I needed to go send a package or when I wanted to go speak to a new face or meet up with someone in the old city in Jerusalem or anywhere. And it was really a huge growth opportunity. And it was almost like we were doing like a 180 because each of us had these lived experiences outside, not living at home. And now we were all back home. Yeah, big like psych. That's a good.
Yeah, it was a little teaser, and you know, I'm curious. I'm looking forward to what that means for the future. I mean, for everybody, but especially for us, having lived through that, come back and lived through what we're doing now.
So it's always a shocker. I think that's one of the things that a lot of people right now are just trying to figure out. At the beginning, people were like trying to figure out like, what am I going to do? How am I going to live? Like a lot of people, I mean, the number of individuals that moved back home, it's huge. I mean, a lot of people are like, I just want to be home with my family, or I can't afford to be in the city because like I had a roommate or someone that went back to their house and they're like, I can't afford this by myself. There's no work. I have to go back home. And the navigation was really, really interesting. And I love the fact that there are 5 women in a house together, and not 5 children, but 5 women in a house together. And your dad must have been like, wow, good times.
He's like, I thought I graduated that part. I've raised 3 and they're out, and I thought I graduated, but no.
Yeah, but you also bring up a really great point about, you know, when you say the Jewish religion and women's role in that space, this was a really good test of that, of kind of our Jewish roots and what we were raised to know and what we learned growing up, and all coming back home and getting to really put those into action over the time that we were away.
Yeah. Honestly, well said. I like that. Well said. All right. So I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to combine this conversation, but I'll start with the way that you were raised. The way that you were raised in regards of being inclusive of so many different people. When I was in Israel, I would go out for a run every single morning. It's my MO. Whenever I go to a country, if I know that I'm safe, I will go for a run every single morning. I get up at 5, go for a run before the day starts. And it was during Ramadan. And so it was cool to see the Greek Orthodox, the Catholic, the Jewish, the Muslims, all together. Israel is smaller than Rhode Island. And within a parameter of my 5-mile run, I'm like taking pictures, and because like I had to take pictures because I'm like, no one will ever believe me, because you guys know when you see that bumper sticker that says coexist and you see all the different symbols. No, we do not coexist. That is Israel, baby. That's coexistence. There's so many different cultures. And I was like in happy tears of every single morning where I can't even believe I'm seeing all these people and all these religions all together. And yet we're only hearing negative things on this side. It's crazy. So unless you, and not only are most people not singing, you're only singing what's in the news. And I can say this, I was in the media. It is what it is. But tour buses and tour buses and tour buses. I'm Haitian Catholic. I'm telling you, I saw so many Haitians there because it's Jerusalem. It was tour buses from all over the world, because this is the story of so many different religions, and we're getting firsthand, we get to touch it, the olive trees. It's epic in every single way. You were raised this way. This is in your essence. All of your careers, except for your little sister, all of your careers are around the whole entire helping of others. How did that happen? Because it's too easy to say, well, I was raised that way, but you could have chosen, another culture that you guys aren't dumb. You're not dumb. You're smart people. Super smart. Super smart. The mecca of entrepreneurship is in your DNA as well. But you could have gone to any role, any job, anywhere. All of you guys are in roles where you're helping communities of diverse communities. Talk about like why, because you could have done something else. Why did you choose the jobs that you have and the routes that you went to?
That's a great question. The first thing that comes to my mind, and I'll marinate this a little bit more as we continue this part of the conversation, but the first thing that comes to my mind is, how can we uplift others and unity? Those are the two things that immediately pop into my head. And yes, we were raised that way, but in everything that we did on a communal level and in our family, kind of speaks to that. And how can I understand someone else's story and come together with them to be stronger, to be a stronger force, to unify, to uplift them if they're struggling, and uplift myself if I'm struggling. It has always been for me a very communal space. And that's the first
I think that's the key though, is that word communal and kind of building community is a learned behavior. And so if that is what is around us, or if that's what we carve out for ourselves in our daily living, then that's what we're going to practice. And it's not going to become about the divides, but it's going to become how we're bridging differences. Yeah. And so it was something that we grew up in a very hospitable home, and we're huge people person. So we love conversation. I'm like the family word vomiter of stories or like narratives or like thoughts, really anything.
I love that you just said that, because I'm the person where if you send me a photo album, I'm looking at every single photo. And everyone's like, oh, some people are like, I looked at your wedding photo 2 or 3. No, I'm looking at every single one. I'm looking at the details. I'm looking at the flowers. I'm looking at everything. So yes, I love that you just said that.
Yes. And so that feeling of like building those connections with the little like, oh, you notice the flowers are at a different angle in the wedding photo and the 2 different wedding photos. That's what we were like with people. That's probably what I'm like with photos too. But that's really, we not seeing like what was different, but recognizing that people bring their own experiences and stories to the table, and we want to hear them, and we want to know about them, and we want to be your friend, and we want to talk about that. And here, my profession especially is very people-centered, as social work is as a profession, but it's all about like meeting people where they are and hearing about what is happening in their life. And it really goes back to our grandma, who she is no longer with us, may her memory be a blessing, but she was really our matriarch who represented Jewish identity and tied it into community and neighborhood and how to keep traditions alive. And part of those traditions meant the interracial, the interfaith interactions with people who don't look like us, who don't practice like us, and who we can still build community with. And I love that you focused on community, because it's really
that was the first thing that came to my mind. And now I'm thinking about, well, how did we, like, what are the actions we took? And it totally goes back to my grandma and our mom and trickle down to us, because our grandma was our role model and our mom is now. And we just, in every piece, it was like, what's important to you, and how can I learn more about you so that we can talk more about you, so that we can figure out what the world looks like and work together to be a stronger unit. And in our work and on a personal level, in our community, at synagogue, there were just so many different avenues of building on that kind of came to this point.
I love it. So now you come home, and Hannah, you are all of a sudden you're like, hey, I'm gonna make some bread. And not just any bread, but I'm just gonna make the bread. But then how did the ritual of taking care of your family grow to the fact that you're now taking care of a wider community, and not just in your community as in I walk out my door and I see my neighbor, but it's like being shipped to different locations? I mean, like, how did this business that would have never happened if it wasn't a pandemic, how did this come to be?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I love that. You're like, Sarah's like, oh my God.
Oh my God. I mean, I'll let Hannah speak to it, but I'm just reflecting on last year, especially this week, when it's all these like firsts that are in the news that are coming out in conversations. And so just, oh my gosh. Okay, go.
Yeah. So a large piece of it comes from a Jewish value, which is in Hebrew, tikkun olam, and in English, that means repairing the world. And so a lot of it began with that. We could even call it like a mantra that it kept us grounded, especially myself. I'll speak for myself. When I first came home,
speak for me too.
When I first came home, and I really began baking a lot of challah, a lot of bread, and there was too much of it. And Sara jokes about the COVID-15. It's more like the COVID-19 or 20 or 21, whatever you want.
I'm with the whole entire COVID-30, because I literally told someone the other day where I was doing the dishes, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, my belly is on top of the, like, what is that all about? I did the baking and stuff like that. I went online and I saw people doing things. I tried to make bread, cannot make bread to save my life. Cannot. My mother's a chef, and she's like, it's easy, it's flour and water. It doesn't work for me. Flour, water, and yeast don't like me. So
that's okay. We'll have to have a tutorial sometime. But yes, we baked a whole lot of bread, and it was also at the peak of the pandemic. So we found ourselves with just loaves kind of sitting around, freshly baked in our kitchen, that none of us were going to eat.
We didn't need.
And we didn't need. And so our mom, who's a part of the hospital network in northern New Jersey, knew of a lot of doctors who were boarding up in homes together after 12-hour shifts, 24-hour shifts, however long they had spent in a mask and gear and gloves and just completely covered.
And they weren't going home because they had like little kids, and so they were all
who were all on the front lines of combating COVID-19. So they were really our heroes, and still are our healthcare heroes. And so the idea sparked to offer these extra loaves to them, because in thinking about this notion of repairing the world, it starts with a small gesture. It doesn't have to be that we're, taking care of every doctor in the nation, although that would be pretty cool to give everyone challah. But we were starting small, and we were kind of going with the think globally, act locally. And so that's really how Challah Back Girls came to be, because it was this like literal giving back of challah baked by young women, but girls kind of flows nicer. And so that was really its inception. And
yeah, and they were taking care of us. And so it was something that we could do to take care of them, which kind of goes into the whole repair the world mantra.
So when you said you had a couple loaves of bread, I mean, in my mind, I'm thinking a couple loaves. And yeah. So how many were your couple? And once you did it once, whose idea came up? We're like, hey, where did the name come from? Because I'm not gonna lie, that's a legit, amazingly fun name.
So a couple loaves, you're absolutely right. It is not a couple loaves. A couple means between like 10 and 15 at least. And up to, at that point, maybe like 30 or like 24.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, definitely not a couple. I was downplaying it. Definitely not a couple. But the reason for that is because when we would bake it, what started as just baking challah for the Sabbath, which is when it's traditionally eaten, we found ourselves with extra loaves that weren't being eaten, because the commandment is just to make the blessing on 2 full loaves of challah. And so that's what we would do. And we would try to do, especially because COVID-19.
Right.
So we gave the extras, our mom would bring them, or we would go to bring them to providers and healthcare heroes. And that snowballed into volunteer ambulance groups in our town and in neighboring towns who were doing potlucks for their shifts over the Sabbath, who needed challah to fulfill the commandment. And so that's what that was the next place that we kind of saw this small act of kindness we could contribute to their meals, and kind of in that vein bridge these communities of, you're doing this really hard work, we're really just in our kitchen making challah bread, right, and we want to be able to give this to you as an acknowledgement of the hard work that you're doing. And
I have a funny picture. I'll include it. I forgot to include it the first time, but I'll have to send it to you. And it's of Hannah. We have a kitchen island, and it had to be like 1 o'clock in the morning on a Thursday night, which is usually when things happen for the weekend in preparation for the Sabbath with our challah. And she was on one end and I was on the other. I think I had just like helped her take the last challah out, and she was finishing up like preparing them out of the oven. And I look at her, and there are just like 10 different shaped and flavored loaves of challah all over the kitchen. And I snapped a picture, and I was just like, what is happening? And I'm laughing thinking about that moment, about what is happening, because since then it's just been insane. But that's kind of how it started to evolve.
So how did the name?
After that night, it must have been like a week or 2 after that night, because we were all sitting at the kitchen table and we were thinking about how much challah we were making. And we were like, this would be really awesome to send to people. And at that time, this had to have been in May. People, for us, shipping was like, why would we ever like ship our challah? We've never done that before. And like, what does that look like? What are the logistics? And so we sat and we thought, okay, well, like, we'll just start here because we're giving to frontline healthcare heroes anyway. So let's do that. And our dad and mom were sitting, and the 4 of us were sitting, and we were like, maybe we should give it some fun, if people are going to receive challah, they're going to receive it from.
Right. And we also, our marketing brains were like, okay, can we include a little slip about who we are, and like a thank you, and
and like, we love you, and we're hoping this will get better. And we sat and we went through, we were like, challah, what does challah rhyme with? What does challah sound like? Well, it's coming from the 4 of us. And our dad started to sing Challah Back Girls,
the one and only,
by Gwen Stefani. And so we all sat there.
So please tell me someone recorded that.
And we have to look, but we sat and we looked at him and we were like, wait a second. Huh, that's exactly what we're doing. And we immediately all kind of turned to like, well, what does that mean? What is like the symbolism of it? What is its connection to what this is? What could this be? And that was how the name came to be. Thank you.
Yay, Dad. Yay,
Yeah.
Dad. For not only Dad is sitting there with 5 women in his household and he pulls out a Gwen Stefani. Yes.
Yes.
He trained us well, we trained him well. What came first?
So at Max, well, all right. So does everyone have a different role of what you were doing? So who does what? And at Max, how many have you made?
Oh my gosh.
I love Sarah's just like, everything is coming back to me from my brain.
No, this is such a healthy conversation to kind of end my week of reflection. This is like the perfect conversation. I'm so happy. I'm saying "oh my gosh" out loud, but it's filled with a lot of happiness and just reflection. Wow. Yes, we have all different, we each have a different role. We do a lot of, as our mom likes to say, cross training, because I work full-time, Hannah's in grad school full-time, Eliana is in school full-time, and Marni is not here and works full-time. And when she comes home, she helps, but Marni has been like our thought leadership, educational leader. And when we need to think through answers to interview questions or organizations or language,
or captions,
captions, gotta give social media credit. Captions. And yeah, she's all about that. That's her shtick. I oversee like the marketing and production of how our challah, Hannah likes to say, goes from oven to table. And so just making sure there's a plan with logistics and marketing schedules and things like that.
Eliana does our quality control. So we like to say she's our chief quality control officer. And because she ensures that all of the loaves are evenly cut and weighed,
you don't mess
she
with her.
makes sure that all of them are risen and prepared to go in. She makes sure that once they come out, they're golden on the sides and they are done in the inside. And she's also very helpful because she brings a different perspective as a 16-year-old to the table. And so kind of catering to the Gen Z, that entrepreneurial space of, creativity and just bringing a new lens, which is awesome.
And she oversees our like data collection. So a few times a month, she'll put together the numbers, some statistics that we have, that challahs we've made. So we don't have to check with her. Challahs we've made, how much we've raised, what are next steps financially and budget, how much we used for tape, for boxes and things like that. So that's super important.
And I'm probably on operations.
Probably, you're in it.
To make sure that I really took, I was kind of like, and my family will say themselves that I really was like the family baker growing up.
She still is.
Since then, though, we really, the cross training is real. Sarah's braids are phenomenal. And
I'm more of like pre-pandemic, just give me a bottle of garlic and I'll just sprinkle it everywhere. I was not about, well, how much flour do we need and how much seeds?
Yeah.
So you and we're going to have to meet with Hannah and your mom for some serious training. But
and making sure that things are getting done when they need to get done. And Sara likes to call me her marketing intern, because I've taken to loving kind of just like playing with different graphics and different photos, and she'll come into the kitchen and I'll be like taking a picture of like a row of challah.
I'm so proud.
And so
those really, I mean, the dough, it all starts with Hannah, and she brings that, to give credit where credit is due. The batches that are made, how much yeast, all the inventory that goes into the challah. That's good job.
And in terms of how many we can make, it varies. We bake every day excluding Saturday because it's the Sabbath. And we bake anywhere between 48 and 144 loaves a day.
Each batch makes 8. Are you frozen? Are you
from
frozen?
your kitchen? From your kitchen.
There are some challahs rising.
I was noticing that. I was like, we're gonna look at that.
We thought about like making it, pretty with flowers or something. We're like, you know what, this is what we're doing.
But I have to ask, your kitchen is, it's not an industrial kitchen where you're like, it's a regular kitchen. Yeah. And so you guys still have to like cook your meals. Mom still has to cook meals for the family. How are you juggling? Hi, we have to mass produce bread. And I'm sorry, I didn't even, that hundreds of loaves in my mind is blowing my mind. So how are you juggling? Hi, I need to feed the family, Mom. And also my girls have a business on the side.
Yeah.
You asked $1 million question.
It is definitely, it's a home kitchen. And so we're trying to pump out as much as possible. We need to also do it like an appliance check. Our ovens need care, our sinks, our electricity, like things need a lot of care, and it's not always easy, and we have to work with what we have and also cook some meals. Right now we for sure it's kicked up a lot. We try and communicate. I think that's also what we've really seen grow a ton in the last 6 months, especially, is how we communicate with each other. Like, okay, we're spending this afternoon doing challah, can someone be on dinner, or something like that. It's just
and I think we also, our timing is, we'll be like, okay, so all of the loaves are done and it's 6 p.m. So you have until 7:30 to use the stove until we're starting back up to make more batches and restart the process.
Right.
4:30 in the afternoon or 4:30 in the morning?
In the afternoon.
Okay, because I was gonna say, like, I go, well, no, because at one time, Sarah, you said 1 o'clock in the morning. So I'm like, what is the time? Are we sleeping? Are we?
What did you say?
We don't know her. Not familiar. There were days, this just happened last week, where we took a photo at 7:30, I'm losing track of time, at 2:30 in the morning.
Oh yeah.
And at 2:30 in the afternoon, we were doing the beginning of the process. We were finishing at 2:30. So we were starting our baking process, and 12 hours prior, we had just finished the ending of that process. So that's kind of like the pattern we're seeing is, but unfortunately it's not always a 12-hour window, though 12 hours would be lovely. It's usually like a 8 to 10 hour window, or like also, we get the sleep in, and then we start our days as humans who work and go to school and have those life priorities, and simultaneously are also doing challah.
Right. Yeah, it's
around the clock.
Yeah, it's pretty around the clock. Yeah, it's pretty around the clock.
One of the things that I noticed that was when I saw you on the news, which was really cool, is every time a loaf is done, there's a prayer over it.
Yeah.
Who does the prayer, and what does the prayer mean? Because I think that was one of the things that I thought it was so special. And you never miss a beat. Every single loaf has a prayer over it. So what is that?
Yes. So every single batch that's made has, our batches at least, we use a 5-pound bag of flour. So the prayer can only be made when you're using a 5-pound bag of flour in your batch of dough. So what happens is we create the dough, and we see the whole process as a very kind of intentional practice, and really just a piece of our Jewish identity, but also now a piece of our just well-being and life activities. And so when we finish that batch, we put it on the counter and we knead it, and then we put it in a bowl to rise. And after 2 hours, it's covered while it's rising. After 2 hours, we bring it back out and we take off the saran and we place our hand over top of the dough and we say the prayer. And the prayer is, in Hebrew, it's called Hafrashat Challah, which translates to separating the dough. And so what that looks like is placing the hand over your batch of dough and saying the blessing to separate the dough. And in biblical times, it was used as a sacrifice for the high priest. But today it's seen as, when we say the blessing, we are thinking of people in need of healing. And so a huge piece of our, to answer your question about who does the blessing, it's all of us who are a part of the process. It's a commandment, a mitzvah. How do you, yeah, mitzvah.
Yeah.
It's like a good deed in Judaism for everyone to be a part of that blessing. So when you say, whoever is saying the blessing, to say amen to that blessing, is you are participating in that ritual, in the good deed. Yes, that was the word I was looking for. Thank you. Good. Mitzvah can translate to commandment or good deed, and good deed. So I was having a brain block. Thank you. So yes, we all participate in the prayer in that way. And our Eliana actually really spoke to it beautifully in the CBS interview, because she really emphasized that a huge part of our project is this connectivity to communities and to what's happening around us, and how we're promoting equity within our home, within our community, within the nation, and how we address the inequities is kind of through this prayer of healing and hope for transformation and acknowledgement of the work that's being done to address both COVID and anti-Black racism and systems of oppression in our country. And so,
can I just tell you, wait, I'm going to pause you. If I had show notes, which of course I so don't, I would say, oh my gosh, you read my show notes, because this is where I'm going. You are creating this beautiful bread, and everyone's talking about it. And we are in the world, right now we're experiencing pandemics. So I've been saying pandemics because everyone's like, oh, it's a pandemic. Well, no, the economy, we call it COVID, Black Lives Matters, xenophobia, which people are not talking about, which was the first thing that came out of the gate after COVID. So the world is experiencing these 4 clear ones on top of so many other things that we were going to have, even if we didn't have a pandemic. So right now, again, xenophobia, Black Lives Matters, the pandemic, and the economy. Globally, everyone, anywhere around the world. The 4 of you guys have literally created this amazing way to bring the world together. And you have people that are purchasing your bread from all over to help other communities. And so how are you grasping at the fact that we're doing this and we get to be with our families, and this is part of our culture, this is part of our religion, this is like part of our jobs of what we've chosen to do, and you're watching the world once again can't get out of its own way. And now things are boiling to the level. I mean, like the soup, it's like you can clearly see the problems with the soup. It is coming up. We're like, oh my God, what do we do? How are you guys handling those conversations in your home? Because there's a lot of situations that are really nasty out there, and people that, and you guys have heard the stories of New Yorkers that are born and raised, second, third generation, born and raised in New York, and now being chased down the street by someone saying, you brought COVID into our country. You're like, I've lived here all my life. What are you talking about? How are you mentally, physically, how are you guys handling that? Because your religion is tight, your family is tight, but you're helping save the world in a way that is very, very harsh right now.
It's a great question.
Yeah, and I think a huge piece of it is going back to how it really began, and what does it look like to come up with a creative idea or an innovative idea and what is the why, and what do we want from it? And so we think about it. It was a huge moment, and it continues to be an opportunity for soul searching and to look inwards, and also see what's happening in the Jewish community with the rise in anti-Semitism. And so we see all of these things. You're absolutely right, of the economy and racism and anti-Asian violence and xenophobia and all of these things, like culminating and just polarizing the whole world. And so we really saw it as this opportunity to build compassion and build or fight for justice and build a more equitable place for all people. And so giving and that for myself, and I will only speak for myself in this vein, that's what brings me comfort, and that's what gets me out of bed in the morning, is that there are so many people, and I know the strong Jewish identity that I have and my connection to my Jewish roots, which says that the Jewish community has a long history of standing in solidarity with marginalized and minority communities and underrepresented communities and under-resourced communities. And this has been a really beautiful initiative and place to fill with love and empathy and relationship building. And so the feeling that people always say, or people tell us, like, the challah process is really long. You do the dough, you have to wait for it to rise, you have to braid it, you have to wait for it to rise, you have to bake it, you have to take it out, it has to cool, like all of these pieces. But it really feels like this opportunity to remind ourselves about how interconnected people are. And that's what keeps me going. That's what keeps Challah Back Girls going.
Well said. I think that was beautifully said, and I echo all of that.
I think that's like one of the things that I love the most, where when I was in Tel Aviv, we went to a school and we visited it was a school that had over 100 different cultures, 100 different races in one school. And I'm thinking, how is this even possible? And you're seeing these kids, and their kids are kids. They just play and they just enjoy each other, and they don't know the negativities until someone starts feeding them the negative parts. And so breaking bread, we know that whole time breaking bread is like, when where I have nothing else to eat, but it's bread and rice. These are two things that people just like equate to, if I have nothing, these are the two things that will sustain me. And I love that it continues, like everything you've said, it continues to bring the world full circle of like, how do we help our community grow? How many people, what has been the feedback to the bread? And what's the furthest reach it is gone, and what's the feedback of what people are saying about it?
So it's really exciting, actually. This week, we've officially sent to all 50 states in the country.
Oh my God, that's my goal. My goal is to get a business in all 50 states. So yes, I'm so excited.
Oh my God, I need to put you in my pocket. Yeah, we've reached all 50 states. It is so fun I think we did Alaska and Hawaii this week, and we took a picture of the box. Just took the memory, and it's so amazing to see how this has evolved, and the feedback that we've gotten and the messages we received from people just writing in. We received an email recently that was longer than an essay I wrote recently, I guess. And we received an email, and it was just connecting, and I think just connecting and loving what we do, but loving having an outlet to connect with people. People are very isolated right now, literally and figuratively and emotionally. Even they might have been isolated pre-pandemic, and this just kind of exacerbated. And I'm the crier of the family, so it's not so hard to make me cry, but I am just every day we receive such beautiful messages on all platforms, and it's just really nice. It's really
and,
nice. And people love the bread. There's an ongoing, I don't want to say argument because I don't want to be negative, but about which flavor people like.
I was gonna ask you, you guys didn't get there. You're like, how many flavors? Because you talked about the garlic at the beginning, that was your job. But what flavors are we dealing with?
You know, I am really stressed about it because I am team coffee crumb till I die, and plain is taking the lead. Plain. And it's like, okay, less is more, fine, get your plains.
But then what about like the everything but the bagel and the chocolate chip? So it's those four, and we feel like they're all in first place, but
we're not biased.
Well, the thing is, they go in your mind, you're thinking bread. You're not thinking about all these different flavors. So, all right, so we have chocolate chip, we have, what else? I mean, what's the listing?
We have those four, and then chocolate chip, everything but the bagel, coffee crumb, and plain.
Yeah.
So those are the core four, and I know I just came up with that on my own. The core four, and over the high holidays, we included a raisin because the raisins we eat on the high holidays, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and Sukkot to signify a sweet new year. We can get into that another time, but that's a raisin challah. That went over very well. People are asking about it now. And, you know, then we're just going to have to send them to our mom to add another closet.
Seasonal, just like it's seasonal. So that way they're looking for it.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. For Hanukkah and the holidays, we did a blue and white sprinkle. That went over really well.
That was awesome.
And
in October, we did pink. We made all of our plain challahs pink. For Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Love it.
Yeah, that was fun. So we try and incorporate, on our feedback form that we send out to the group that received challahs that week, there's an opportunity in a field to write in organizations you'd like us to look into to support and challah flavors. And so we're trying to incorporate some of that.
Well, all right. So now let's talk about that for a quick second. The communities that you support. So now when you're providing bread, people are now buying bread, you hit all 50 states, people are paying you, what happens with the money? Who are you helping there?
Yes, so we are in our 15th organization this month, and how it began was we actually did an organization a week, but what we learned was that it was really important to us to build the relationship with the organization, because we saw that it just made the world of a difference in how we were able to speak to the impact they're making, and how we were able to amplify them and support them, not only monetarily, but even just on our platforms and sharing their message of, there's so much more that unites us than divides us. And in what ways can we offer out our hands or a hand up to amplify these organizations. And so some of our organizations are addressing food insecurity. One of the organizations that we partnered with addresses food insecurity in the Chicago area and is helping Black and Latinx restaurant owners receive funds to keep their restaurants afloat during the pandemic. And something that felt really beautiful about that was also started in the pandemic. And it was just such an important opportunity to grow their organization addressing food insecurity and sharing that important message, as well as the restaurants that they were helping. So that was an awesome one. Another organization we partnered with offers scholarships and funding and resources to students in disenfranchised communities. And that's it's called the B3 Foundation. And something that I was really excited about that was it was founded by Pittsburgh Steelers NFL player Zach Banner. And we're lifelong Pittsburgh Steelers fans. So that was super exciting, especially for Sara. She's our in-house cheerleader always. Another one addresses homelessness and provides resources for people at risk of and experiencing. And then last month, we partnered with The Conscious Kid, and they are an education and research and policy organization that is dedicated to equity and promoting a healthy racial identity development in youth. And so we even we purchased books off of their book resources on their website. And that also something beautiful is it's a learning opportunity for us, because part of allyship and part of community is learning about the other and how other people live and learn and how we can best represent and support. And so that's a huge piece of those partnerships and of the support we are able to give to the organizations.
You guys are just so amazing. Like, I mean, goodness gracious. I mean, I don't even know what I would do if I had all four of you guys here. This is like crazy. You guys are so amazing. All right, so I have two more questions. Okay. Technically three, but two questions. Where do you go from here? Because during the pandemic, there are a lot of people that started businesses. A lot of people pivoted on their businesses, added new resources that they would have never thought about. The world, as people are getting vaccinated, as more and more places are realizing, yes, our new normal may be 50% home, 50% work, but we're going to open up. We're going to be back on planes and traveling. What happens to Challah Girls? I mean, where do we go next from here?
I can't wait to get on the plane.
And bring Challah.
And bring Challah. I want to go to, maybe we'll just bring some to Puerto Rico. I don't know. That's a great question. And it's something that we speak about often, especially as the world reopens. And I think that there is a need for this, for all the things that we're doing, and at least for me to continue learning and continue growing with this. And we can't stay in this kitchen forever, especially with the demand. So I don't know if ShopRite is listening, or any flour companies, Domino Sugar, anything. But we would love to grow in a meaningful way, if we can, and take this outside of our kitchen one day to meet the demand and also continue educating our audience and also learning for ourselves. I think that's pretty what we've been focused and communicating about often.
Yeah, and the project was really birthed by the moment and by the movement around us. And something that we've learned since it began was that it's not a momentary thing. It's not a one-time only addressing of inequality. It's something that's happening around us. And if we can bring that awareness and redirect people's attention to what's happening and what is continuing to happen, then we want to do that, and we want to be able to do that and sustain the project in the organization as long as is needed.
Yeah. I think that I mean, for me personally, we just think about 10 years ago, Uber, Lyft, Zoom, all these companies that stemmed from there that didn't exist. And right. Now we're all here. And I said this from day one, March 2020, I'm like, I can't wait to find out what's going to come out of this, because there's so many amazing people that I've spoken to that have created or pivoted or just moved on to something that they would have never done. So I'm so excited that you all four of you, your entire family exists. I'm so happy that you've done this. And I love that I have a connection with you in regards to Israel, because when I was there, I never thought I would ever go to Israel. It was just like, it literally was hi, you've been invited because you've been selected. And I'm like, what's happening here? This is crazy. And awesome. and then just being there, and it was just, I mean, whenever people ask me, they're like, what's your favorite country? I'm like, I don't have a favorite country, because everyone has something else to offer. But to be in Israel, and my grandmother had gone to Israel so many different times. I mean, she was like she's the most religious person in our family. Holy water when you walk through the door, the whole entire huge Last Supper. And it was so amazing to be there. I mean, just like watching the prayer wall. I mean, just going from religion to religion, all in one section. It was just such a beautiful place where I just wish that people would find better ways to educate themselves, to understand there's no need to fear, because the fear leads to hate if you actually take the time to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Amen. It's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. And every single time I get on a plane, libraries and churches are automatic. That's the way I was taught, because you can't learn about society without learning about their history and the way that they see and respect the world and the people around them. And so I love the fact that everything that you guys are doing is so beautiful. It's so amazing. It's so smart. It's smart, but what, am I surprised? Badass women, not surprised. Right? So I do love that so much. So with all that, and again, I give accolades. Last question to you guys are, for anyone that is listening and watching, what, if you had a personal ask and you had a professional ask? I ask this of everyone. This is the way I end all conversations. If you had a personal ask and a professional ask, what would be your personal ask and what would be your professional ask of anyone that's listening? And the good thing is there's 2 of you, so you guys could throw out 4 answers right now.
I know for me, the first thing that comes to my mind for a personal ask is, and it really is simple, but it's just to be kind and accepting of people's differences, because that just, it does more good than harm. Like, there's just no reason to come up against someone who's different than you, and on every level. And so there's just so much beauty that can come out of talking and being kind and accepting of someone else, culture, an individual, community, religion, so many different layers of that. And so just to be kind and accepting and meet people where they are. That's my personal ask.
You literally took my personal
You're
ask.
kidding.
No, I'm serious.
I'm so sorry. Build.
That's okay. I'll build. I'm building. It's all about pivoting and adaptability.
I'll support you.
My personal ask I'd have to echo that and build on it, that everybody feels something. We feel emotions. We feel the movement around us. We feel hatred. We feel kindness. We are capable of feeling, and we are capable of empathy. And so understanding that everyone has gone through something in their life and will continue to go through things in life, and recognizing that that's part of our journey. That's part of who we are as human beings. And we all can either marinate and live in the space that is, well, like, bad things have happened and there's bad in the world and there are bad people, or we can shift our perspective and practice empathy and recognize the goodness or see the goodness in situations. And that would have to be my personal ask of myself to continue, and of the people around me and who are listening.
I love how the word practice has been thrown out by everybody in this conversation, because there's so much to continue to practice every day on a personal and a professional level. And I guess do you want to go first?
No, you can go.
Well, wait, before you go to your professional, I have to say that you guys did a real good job of piggybacking off of each other. I mean, you nailed it in every single way. And I think that the more people are hearing your words, the more people are taking a little checking in myself. Sometimes, and you know this, you could hear your mother say something over and over and over and over again. And then you're like, and then someone else says, you're like, ooh, new perspective. So I love that you guys are offering a new perspective to people that are listening, that are aware, they know it in their hearts, and they're not paying attention until someone says it in a just a little different way. So thank you for the personals. Okay, now professional.
So, and my professional ask and my personal kind of shines into the professional, because I'm bringing that to the table in this space. And I just be curious and learn, and don't be afraid to ask questions and have the uncomfortable conversations. They exist, and if we can all be kind and accepting, then that can shine through in learning and having conversations that will help you grow. I'm sorry. I knew it in my soul.
Yeah.
Say it again, because they might listen to you.
My professional ask would have to be also echoing Sara. But that there is so much diversity in our world and in society and in our organizations, and acknowledging that and accepting that and sitting in the discomfort of that, if it's uncomfortable for you, is okay. And that it kind of goes back to that personal piece of feeling uncomfortable, as Sara said, and also understanding where people come from. And there's so much we can learn about one another and from one another to build a more inclusive society, that we need to be doing that in our professional spaces and working on it as personal individuals.
Round of applause, snap, snap, snap. Like I go, hello, hello, hello. I mean, like, honest to goodness, I mean, that was mic drop. Mic drop. No, I mean, Sara, Hannah, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for saying yes to CBS, because I watched CBS and I watched you and I'm like, I'm going to ask them, because they could say no, but I'm going to ask them. What an amazing conversation. You guys are the best.
Thank you.
This is such a blessing. Thank you so much.
Oh, you guys are fantastic. And I mean, it's so of over 100 people that I've had conversations with. There are times that I purchase and I buy, and I'm like, I go and I get so excited that I'm like going online. So I spoke to a woman last week. Her name is Shalonda. She's a vet, and she has her grandfather left her. She left the granddaughter, which is so weird. They had lots of aunts and uncles, and left her the secret sauce, like the recipe to a secret sauce. And so then she's like, I'm gonna go with this. I don't know why I got the recipe, but I'm gonna go with it. And she's mass produced. And I finished talking to her. I went right online and I bought it. And I'm like, holy crap, this thing is good. Like, you hear things and sometimes you're like, it's all right. It's actually good and it's on fire. And as a Caribbean kid, I love things that are hot and spicy. I mean, mutt sauce. I mean, it's so good. So now I'm like, I go, getting it off the phone. I'm gonna get my bread because I can't make it. So I'm so excited to get my bread, because wait, how long does it take on average to get to New England? Like, if I buy it today?
It'll take a night. So, and we bake it the same day. We'll send you.
It's baked fresh.
No, I'm supporting, because I'm supporting. But I'm like, because like, I mean, I can't send it to my mom because my mom makes these rolls and I'll send you guys a picture of them. My mom's rolls are just so silly that they're like, it's everyone knows my mom for these rolls. And she literally like goes, just like cabinet, and then it rises like the globe. And I'm like, what are you doing? And so I was taking pictures. I put it on Facebook, and everyone's like, are you kidding me? I go, that's what I grew up with. This, I know it's not even right. So I respect anyone that can make bread. I respect you. I respect you.
We can't wait to share it.
Buying your bread. Buying your bread. Ladies, thank you so very much. This is not the last conversation. I want to bring more ways of getting us together to have a conversation and get small businesses, entrepreneurs, innovators in a limelight where it's not just 7 seconds on a news channel or a small package. I want us to have larger conversations. And so psyched for you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was beautiful and so fun. Thank you. I mean, my lighting is off because my ring died on me today. Oh, so you just can't get a good ring. Jeez Louise.
It's true.
Thank you so very much. And until next time.
Until next time. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.